In this tutorial, we are going to take three separate conversion apps that have been created in Visual Basic and turn them into a multi-purpose conversion app with a menu system. You should already have created three different versions of a conversion, one for length, one for volume, and one for speed. You can see that on screen I have a speed conversion app, and this sets up a variable called miles per hour, or mph. It has a constant that converts the distances, and it then asks the user a question, reads what they've typed in, does the conversion, and prints that on screen. If I just run this, how many miles per hour? If you were doing 50 miles per hour, you'd expect an answer of roughly about 80 kilometers per hour. And you can see there that 50 miles per hour converts to 80.465 kilometers per hour. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, the first thing we're going to do is to comment out the main parts of the speed conversion here. So I'm going to highlight them, and up on the toolbar I have a commenting tool. So this little green and grey lines tool will put a comment apostrophe in front of each line, and they are no longer part of the running code. I can incidentally uncomment them by highlighting and then using the blue goes back arrow to remove the comment. So what I want to do now is, in fact, what I'll do is I'll take these lines here and I'll drag them to after the program's finished. And I just missed a bit there. Let me just take that on to the end. Okay, so that what we have inside our submain is just a console read key to stop the screen from closing. What I'm now going to do is to follow the instructions on the sheet that you'll be supplied with to build a menu-driven application. So we can see that stage one was to build three separate apps. Stage 2 is now to build a menu-driven stub application. So inside submenu, we are going to collect the user's choice, and we're going to do that by letting them input a string of which menu choice they would like to have. So back at my code, I'm going to leave the bits up there that define my constants and my variables. But in here, I'm going to put dim to leave a box, dim menu choice as string. So we need it to be a word or at least a letter that we can type in. So dim menu choice as string is going to set aside space for us to collect information from the user. Then we are going to be looking to show the user some instructions, get what they are choosing, and then doing that kind of conversion. Now, this is a top-down processing approach to writing our code. These are functions that don't exist yet. If I say display instructions and make it a function by putting brackets after it, you can see that it's highlighted it by wiggly red underlining because this function doesn't exist. It says display instructions is not declared, show potential fixes. So I'm going to click on show potential fixes, and it asks if I want to generate the method, and that is exactly what I want to do. So I named a function that didn't exist, and I'm now going to let Visual Basic create a stub for me. A stub is a piece of code that doesn't do the full job that it's supposed to. It's just there until you've got a better version created. Now, display instructions has private sub-display instructions end sub, so it's its own self-contained recipe. It has throw new not implemented exception. We need to take that, which basically says I haven't written any code yet, and we need to replace it with some useful code. I'm going to say just first of all, console.writeLine And to make it a stub, I'm just going to say instructions will appear. And that's it. It's now a stub. It doesn't do what the real job is. It doesn't actually show instructions, but it tells me that it will show instructions, so it will run as a piece of code. The next thing I'm going to do back up in submain is say that menu choice, and I always press equals by mistake, enter by mistake instead of spacebar. So menu choice equals get user choice. So I'm just giving this a sensible name. Display instructions, it's obvious what it does. Get user choice, it's kind of obvious what it's going to do. Now again, that doesn't exist yet. So when I mouse over it, it says get user choice is not declared, show potential fixes. I mouse down to show potential fixes and click on that. It's asking, do I want to generate a property or do I want to generate a method? And generally we want to generate a method. A property is a single item of code. A method is a set of instructions for how to do something. So I'm going to do that. You can see that this time, instead of a private sub, which just does something and then finishes, it's generated a private function. And a private function will return an answer to the main calling code. So it does something as a set of instructions, but at the end of it, it sends back an answer. And that's the job of a function. So what do I need this to do? Well, I need it to collect information from the user and then send back which letter they have chosen. Now, for the sake of speed, you can obviously do this. Actually, let's do it as a stub first of all. So I'm just going to return, the only code that I've got at the moment is something that does speed. So I'm just going to say here, instead of throw not implemented exception, I'm going to say return S. So I'm always choosing speed here until I've got extra code that can do other things. Later, I will replace this with better code that lets me actually make a choice as the user instead of always just choosing S as the computer. Okay, and then what do I want to do? Well, I want to actually act on what I've done. So I'm going to say do conversion, and I'm going to send in menu choice. And I keep pressing enter instead of space. Do conversion menu choice is what my program should actually do. Do conversion doesn't exist yet. So I'm then going to show potential fixes. So this is my whole top-down processing method. I write a broken down instruction, a bite-sized chunk, and then I fill it in with some useful code. So I'm going to generate the method. Notice that this time we have a sub because it's not expecting an answer back, but it's also this time sending in what I chose as a string. So I now need to get some code that will work with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this code here. This code is using a select case. And a select case is, if it'll let me highlight it, which it won't. Okay, so I'm just going to have to type this very quickly then. Right. What a select case does is it lets you choose between a bunch of options. So select case menu choice. And I remember to space that time. And notice when I press enter, it puts in our first case that's available and it does an end select. So if I put in the letter L, then I am going to console write line you want a length conversion. case V, console write line, you want a volume conversion. And case S, which is the case that we are going to have because that's been chosen automatically, console dot write line, you want a speed conversion. Okay, so that is our options. We could put in a default which said any other letter would then say, I don't know how to do that conversion. Did we put that into the instructions here? Case else, yeah. So case else takes care of all the other options. Let's just put that in quickly. Case else console.writeLine. I don't know what you want to do. Okay, that is our do conversion working. If I run this code, so what it's going to do, it's going to display the instructions. It's going to get a user choice, but that's just going to send back the letter S, and then it's going to do a conversion with the letter S sent in. So if I run that code, instructions will appear. You want a speed conversion. That's all it does at the moment. So what I need to do now is to put in some actual useful code instead of these stubs. I was having a bit of a problem in highlighting this. I'm going to try open with Google Docs and see if that can let me copy and paste things just to save a bit of typing time here. Okay, my instructions, instead of just something fairly useless, I'm going to scroll down. In fact, here's a little trick. Display instructions, where is it? I can right click on that and I can go to definition, and that'll jump me to the section of code where that appears. So I can replace instructions will appear here with some actual useful instructions for the end user. Okay, and what else do we need to do? Well, we need to have a replacement for our get user choice. Instead of just returning S, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out which key they've pressed and use that to send back some code. So I'm going to take this here and I'm just going to copy that. It'd be better if you were to type that up and see what it is that's happening. I'm doing this just for speed. So I'm going to take return S, paste that in there. So what it does is it makes a char, which is a single character. It uses console read key to key char, and then it keeps going until it gets an L, a V, or an S, and then returns that solution. If I go back to my code now, run that, it gives me instructions. I press D, and it's doubling these up for some reason. Nothing happens, but if I press S, it says, I don't know what you want to do. And the reason for that is because we need to put these into capital letters.